Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. For centuries, the clock had remained silent, a mere relic forgotten amid the echoes of a bygone era. Its brass hands, tarnished by time, yet still poised in perpetual motion, had long since lost their luster. That is, until one fateful evening, when a fierce storm battered the city, causing the ancient clock tower to tremble and awaken from its slumber. In the wake of the tempest, the clock's face flickered back to life, and its numerals began to diminish slowly, as though counting down not the hours of the day, but the very moments remaining before catastrophe struck. Rumors spread quickly through the narrow streets and candlelit taverns. Whispers spoke of an omen, a warning etched in time by a long-forgotten hand. Among those who listened most intently was Julian Crane, a disillusioned journalist with a haunted past, whose own life had been defined by moments that slipped away too quickly. Julian's curiosity, fueled by equal parts skepticism and desperation, drove him to the clock tower. Armed with a notebook, an old camera, and a persistent determination to uncover the truth, he ventured into the labyrinthine corridors of the derelict building. The air was thick with dust and the scent of decay, each step echoing in the silence that seemed to worship this singular artifact of fate. Inside, the ancient gears and delicate mechanisms lay exposed, relics of a forgotten age when craftsmanship was as much art as it was engineering. At the center of the room, the clock's face glowed faintly in the gloom, its hands moving inexorably, counting down with each resounding tick that vibrated through the chamber. Julian noted the decreasing numbers with mounting alarm. Each decrement felt like a heartbeat, a pulse heralding the approach of a disaster too imminent to ignore. Determined to unravel the mystery, Julian sought out the town's elderly librarian, a quiet woman named Ms. Eleanor Voss, whose memory of the city's history was as expansive as the ancient tomes lining the dusty shelves of the municipal archives. In a room filled with the scent of yellowed parchment and whispered secrets, she recounted a legend that had almost faded into myth. According to Eleanor, the clock was crafted centuries ago by an eccentric horologist named Alistair Blackwood, a man whose obsession with predicting the future bordered on madness. Blackwood was said to have experienced a vision of an apocalyptic event that would devastate the city. In his desperation, he designed the clock not as a harbinger of mere time, but as an instrument of prophecy. Its countdown meant to warn those who could hear its somber ticks. Despite numerous attempts to discredit the legend, Eleanor's eyes shone with conviction. "It was meant to be a call to action," she whispered, "a warning to those who still had a chance to change the course of fate." As Julian delved deeper into the historical records, he began noticing an unsettling synchronicity between the clock's countdown and a series of unnatural events unfolding throughout the city. Lights flickered inexplicably. Inexplicable tremors rattled the cobblestones of ancient streets, and shadows moved in the periphery of every room as if haunted by memories of future calamities. Midnight on a rain-soaked evening, when the countdown had dwindled to an almost imperceptible number, the city itself seemed to hold its breath. The eerie silence of the clock tower transcended the physical realm, its ticking a rhythmic metronome that measured not mere seconds, but the inevitable approach of disaster. Julian, haunted by both his past and the relentless ticking, resolved to document every sensation, every whisper of fate that could shed light on what was coming. Word of the clock's ominous countdown began to spread beyond the confines of whispered rumors. City dwellers, academics, and even authorities, each touched by a sense of impending doom, started to converge on the beleaguered clock tower. Among them was Dr. Miriam Reyes, a seismologist and expert in ancient mechanisms, whose rational mind sought to reconcile the inexplicable with the known laws of physics. Together, Julian and Miriam formed an unlikely alliance, seeking to decode the inner workings of the clock. They uncovered arcane inscriptions hidden beneath layers of corrosion, meticulous notes left in the margins by Alistair Blackwood himself. These inscriptions were filled with cryptic phrases and mathematical formulas that defied conventional logic. In hushed tones, the two discussed their findings late into the night, their voices blending with the relentless tick-tock of the ominous timepiece. As midnight crept closer, they discovered a hidden compartment behind the clock's gears, where a fragile parchment lay preserved. The document revealed Blackwood's final, desperate attempt to provide a solution, a ritual that could reverse the countdown if performed with exactitude. However, the ritual came at a steep cost, one that demanded personal sacrifice and an unwavering conviction in the face of the inevitable. Emboldened by a mixture of hope and trepidation, Julian, Miriam, and a small group of intrepid volunteers prepared to enact the ritual. Every individual in the group was touched by personal loss or unfulfilled hope, their lives now intertwined with the thread of destiny woven by the clock's mysterious mechanism. They believed that by uniting their broken fragments of hope, they might alter the fated trajectory foretold by Blackwood. Under a stormy sky laced with streaks of lightning, the group gathered in the clock tower's main chamber. The stage was set. Ancient symbols were drawn in chalk on the floor. Relics of sentimental value, photographs, mementos, even handwritten letters, were arrayed around the clock as offerings to the mysterious forces at work. Julian's hand trembled as he recited the incantations outlined on Blackwood's parchment, each word a fragile bridge between past despair and the promise of redemption. With every syllable uttered, the clock's hands shuddered, its ominous countdown momentarily pausing as if contemplating the plea. The atmosphere was thick with raw emotion, the combined energy of hope and despair pulsating through the room. Dr. Reyes monitored the subtle seismic shifts in the structure, her instruments reporting inexplicable anomalies that seemed to correlate with the chanting. The group's belief, their heartfelt desire to rewrite fate, hung suspended in the fragile balance of the ticking seconds. At the zenith of their efforts, when the last echo of the incantation quivered in the storm-battered air, the clock's countdown halted abruptly. For a fleeting heartbeat, the silence was deafening, an eternity wrapped in the promise of salvation. Then, as if the fragile barrier between hope and despair shattered, calamity was unleashed. A tremendous rumble reverberated through the tower and spilled into the city streets. The ground convulsed violently, splitting open with a terrible wet groan. Skyscrapers that had withstood the test of time trembled, as if acknowledging the wrath of forgotten gods. The disaster, long prophesied by the ancient clock, had been set into motion, an upheaval born of instability, both literal and existential. In the chaos that followed, the streets became a maelstrom of dust, shattered glass, and desperate cries. Julian and Miriam struggled to maintain order amid pandemonium. The group that had once been united by hope now faced the merciless tide of fate that could not be so easily reversed. As the clock tower itself began to crumble, its stones tumbling away in a cascade of ruin, it became clear that the disaster was far greater and more complex than any had anticipated. In the eye of the storm, amidst the crumbling ruins and falling debris, Julian found himself grappling with the profound weight of responsibility. In his heart, he understood that the ritual, despite its noble purpose, had exacted a steep toll. The delicate balance between hope and despair had been upended, and the clock's countdown had merely been a mirror for the inevitable consequences of tampering with destiny. Dr. Reyes worked tirelessly amidst the wreckage, rescuing survivors and using her knowledge to mitigate further collapse. Meanwhile, Julian's thoughts turned inward. He recalled Blackwood's final words, that every second was a gift, every tick a reminder of life's fragile beauty. In his desperate attempt to save the future, had he instead unleashed a greater calamity? As the hours bled into days, the city reeled from the disaster. Yet amid the despair, there glimmers of redemption emerged. Neighbors helped one another rebuild. Strangers became kin in the shared crucible of loss. And the survivors learned that the true measure of life was not in the avoidance of catastrophe, but in the courage to rise after falling. In the aftermath of destruction, as the city's wounds began to mend, Julian and Miriam continued their quest for answers. The remnants of the ancient clock, now lying scattered among the rubble, served as solemn memorials to what had transpired. Julian's journal, filled with every anxious detail of the countdown and the tumultuous events that followed, became both a historical record and a deeply personal confession of the price of playing with fate. The survivors, bonded by their shared scars, organized community efforts to rebuild. The ruins of the clock tower were not erased but incorporated into a new monument, a reminder that time, though fraught with peril, also held the promise of renewal. In secret meetings amid the rubble, communities began to speak of Blackwood's wisdom, that every disaster was a prelude to rebirth, and every moment was a precious shard of time that could never be reclaimed. Dr. Reyes and Julian, now united by their trials, vowed to honor the lessons learned. They collaborated with scholars, historians, and survivors to piece together the shattered fragments of the past, hoping to prevent such disasters from recurring. In this uneasy balance between progress and caution, the ticking seconds of life resumed their course, a gentle reminder that even in the deepest darkness, hope could emerge. Years later, when the scars of the disaster had begun to fade into memory, the rebuilt city took on a new character, a blend of modern resilience and ancient wisdom. At its heart stood a monumental structure where the old clock tower had once loomed. Integrated into this new edifice was a digital chronometer, its design a tribute to the fateful clock that had once counted down to disaster. This modern clock did not merely mark time, it served as a living reminder of the delicate balance between hope and despair. Schools taught the history of the calamity as a lesson in humility and perseverance, while public memorials celebrated the indomitable spirit of those who had risen from ruin. Julian's writings became compulsory reading for generations, a narrative that transcended time, a chronicle of the human condition, where every second was both a warning and a promise. In quiet moments, citizens would pause beneath the public clock, reflecting on the relentless passage of time. They recalled the terrifying countdown and the day when disaster nearly consumed them. Yet they also remembered the strength that emerged in its wake, the courage of individuals who had faced the unknown and the power of community in the face of devastation. As twilight fell over the rebuilt city, the gentle hum of the modern chronometer resonated with a quiet certainty. It reminded everyone that time was not merely a sequence of events, but a canvas upon which the human spirit was painted. Fragile, resilient, and infinitely precious. The clock that once counted down to disaster now served a new role, a beacon of remembrance and a silent pledge to cherish every tick of life. For in the deep, eternal rhythm of time, every second held the weight of history, every tick echoed with the lessons of the past, and every dawn was a promise of new beginnings. And so, long after the disaster had receded into legend, the legacy of the ticking clock endured, a timeless parable about the power of fate, the cost of hubris, and the unwavering hope that lies at the heart of every human journey. Thus, the story of the clock that counted down to disaster became an eternal testimony, a reminder that even when time itself seems to conspire against us, there is always a chance to rebuild, to learn, and to transform the darkest moments into the foundations of a brighter future. Anna Marie Ellis had always possessed a fascination with the obscure legends of her hometown, a small village cradled by misty hills and gnarled forests. As a child, she spent long summer afternoons playing near the riverbank, her imagination alight with fantasies of secret meetings and whispered confidences carried by the wind. Now, years later, as an adult and a writer eager for a breakthrough story, Anna Marie returned to her roots, determined to uncover the true story of the bridge. It was on a crisp autumn evening, with the sky painted in hues of lavender and gold, that she first set foot upon the old crossing. The bridge, its stones smoothed by the relentless passage of time, arched gracefully over the gentle current. As she stepped onto the structure, an odd sensation of familiarity and melancholy washed over her. With every step, a cascade of whispers seemed to accompany her, a symphony of voices that spoke of hopes, regrets, and dreams long past. For days following her initial encounter, Anna Marie found herself drawn back to the bridge. Each visit revealed new layers of mystery. On one such evening, as a soft fog began to envelope the landscape, she sat at the midpoint of the bridge, closed her eyes, and listened. Amid the natural chorus of rustling leaves and the gentle flow of water below, she discerned distinct words, a murmur that spoke of love lost and promises unfulfilled. Convinced that these were the voices of souls trapped by time and memory, she began to document her experiences in a leather-bound journal. The entries detailed not only the ethereal whispers, but also the subtle changes in the bridge's ambiance, how the sound of the river deepened, and how the wind would sometimes pause as if giving the voices room to speak. Neighbors who initially dismissed her accounts as fanciful imagination began to recall similar experiences from their youth, tales of a bridge that acted as a repository for the secrets of those who had lived and departed long before their time. Driven by curiosity and the desire to understand the bridge's true history, Anna Marie embarked on research that led her into dusty archives and forgotten libraries. In an old leather-bound ledger, she discovered that the bridge had been constructed centuries ago by a master stonemason known simply as Elias. His craftsmanship was renowned far and wide, and legends soon intertwined his name with that of the structure. According to a fragile, handwritten account found tucked between yellowed pages, Elias had dedicated his life to building something eternal, a crossing not just of water, but of souls. The ledger recounted that, during its construction, Elias had encountered a mysterious wanderer who spoke in riddles. The wanderer claimed that the bridge, once completed, would become a meeting point between the living and the dead, a passage for whispers and memories. Despite the skepticism of his peers, Elias followed the stranger's advice, leaving behind inscriptions on hidden parts of the structure. Anna Marie's excitement grew as she deciphered cryptic notes embedded in the ledger, hints that the bridge was indeed much more than a feat of engineering. It was a vessel for the voices of history. One fog-laden evening, while Anna Marie read through the ledger in a cramped municipal archive, an elderly gentleman approached her. Introducing himself as Mr. Beaumont, he explained that he was the unofficial guardian of the bridge, a role passed down through generations. With eyes that glimmered with a mix of sorrow and wisdom, Mr. Beaumont recounted his own experiences of the whispers. He explained that every decade, on a night when the veil between worlds thinned, the bridge would awaken its true nature. "I remember," he said softly, "the night of the great storm of '68. As lightning danced in the sky, the voices grew so loud that every heart along the river was touched by the lament of the forgotten." He described how the bridge had become a sanctuary for those who had lost their way, those whose stories had yet to be told. His narrative was interlaced with quiet reverence for the souls that used the bridge as their conduit, as if every stone had absorbed a memory, every arch a sorrowful secret. Inspired by Mr. Beaumont's testimony and driven by her own desire to capture this haunting legacy, Anna Marie embarked on an ambitious project. She organized a series of gatherings on the bridge, inviting villagers, historians, and even skeptics to share stories they had heard or experienced in its presence. One by one, they recounted tales of love and loss, of battles fought and lives ended too soon. In one story, an elderly woman recalled how, as a young girl, she had heard the whispers of a young soldier lost in time. His words spoke of undying affection for a forbidden love and a longing to be reunited with his beloved across the river. In another, a local fisherman told of a night when the whispers appeared to guide him through a perilous storm, steering his boat safely to shore. The bridge had become a repository of collective memory, each whisper a thread in the complex tapestry of the town's history. As the years passed, the legend of the Whispering Bridge spread, drawing curious visitors from neighboring regions. Yet for Anna Marie, the true magic lay in the intimate moments of communion on the bridge, under skies heavy with starlight. She felt an inexplicable duty to protect the sanctity of the space, a place where every whisper was a testament to the human experience, each echo a bridge between past and present. One evening, as the summer waned and the nights grew longer, an extraordinary occurrence unfolded. It was the night of the thinned veil, when folklore promised that the boundary between the material and the spiritual would be the most fragile. The moon hung low and luminous, its silvery glow bathing the bridge in an unearthly light. Anna Marie, joined by Mr. Beaumont and several locals, gathered at the center of the bridge. As the clock struck midnight, the whispers crescendoed into a harmonious chorus, each voice distinct and yet part of a unified lament. In that moment, the bridge transformed. The stone underfoot pulsed gently with the rhythm of the whispers, and the air shimmered with the presence of unseen figures. The voices coalesced into a tapestry of sound, a gentle, melodious dirge that seemed to cradle the very souls of all present. Anna Marie felt a profound connection to these voices, as if the bridge had unlocked a secret channel between her own heart and the ages. Within the symphony of voices, Anna Marie began to perceive a distinct, recurring note, a soft, plaintive hum that resonated with the sorrow of unspoken regrets. It was as though one particular spirit was trying desperately to communicate, to ensure that its story would not be lost among the many. Determined to trace the origins of this singular voice, Anna Marie spent nights on the bridge, writing down every intonation, every nuanced fluctuation in the echo. Her research led her to a dusty folktale about a painter named Rowan, whose life had been marked by a tragic romance. It was said that Rowan had built a secret studio beneath the bridge, where he painted with such fervor that his canvases captured the very essence of melancholy. Consumed by grief when his beloved perished in a mysterious accident on the river, Rowan had vowed never to let her memory fade. In a final act of desperation, he had painted her likeness on a canvas that he kept hidden, believing that the art might one day summon her spirit back to him. Over the years, it was rumored the studio had collapsed and the painting lost among rubble, but not before Rowan had inscribed a series of cryptic messages in his journal, detailing the sorrows of love and the transformative power of memory. As Anna Marie pieced together this legend, she realized that the singular voice in the chorus might belong to Rowan himself, a soul still wandering the bridge, searching for a love he could never reclaim. Emboldened by her discoveries, Anna Marie resolved to bring Rowan's hidden story into the light. With the help of Mr. Beaumont and a small team of local artisans, she embarked on a restoration project that aimed not only to repair the physical structure of the bridge, but also to commemorate the voices that had long dwelt upon it. Together, they cleaned the weathered stones, meticulously traced the old inscriptions, and even discovered remnants of Rowan's faded sketches etched into the mortar. The restoration process was, in many ways, a journey of healing for the community. With every stone reset and every inscription restored, the bridge began to pulse with renewed life. It transformed from a silent relic into a living monument, a place where past and present merged in a quiet celebration of memory and resilience. A grand dedication ceremony was held on a brisk winter day. Lanterns swayed in the gentle wind as townsfolk gathered on the bridge, each person bringing a token of remembrance, a photograph, a memento, a whispered prayer. When the clock finally tolled at dusk, a hush fell over the crowd. Then, as if summoned by collective longing, the familiar whispers began anew. This time, however, the voices were not merely echoes of sorrow, but also carried tones of hope, forgiveness, and renewal. Over the following years, the renovated bridge became a focal point for storytelling and remembrance. Schools organized field trips where children learned of local legends, and elders recounted their own experiences of the ethereal whispers. Anna Marie wrote detailed accounts and compiled oral histories, ensuring that the bridge's legacy would be preserved in both word and spirit. Artists found inspiration in its mystical aura, creating paintings, sculptures, and even theatrical productions that dramatized the poignant interplay of sound and silence upon the bridge. Musicians composed haunting melodies that echoed the cadence of the whispered voices, and poets wove verses that celebrated the fragile beauty of remembrance. The bridge, once a lonely passage over dark, murmuring water, had evolved into a cultural nexus, a living archive of human emotion, capturing the spectrum of life from grief to joy. Local authorities, recognizing the bridge's significance, established an annual Whispering Festival. On this day, the bridge was illuminated with soft, ambient lights, and ritual performances were held at sunset. Participants shared stories of personal loss and triumph, reinforcing the belief that every whisper was a thread in the enduring fabric of the community's collective soul. As decades passed, the bridge continued to whisper. With each generation, new tales emerged while the ancient ones were passed down like heirlooms. Anna Marie's initial quest transformed into an ongoing mission of preservation, one that she entrusted to a younger group of scholars and storytellers, determined to honor the bridge's legacy with the same reverence that had once drawn her in. Even as modernity crept into the surrounding village, the bridge maintained its timeless allure. Tourists from distant cities visited, not merely to witness its physical beauty, but to sit in quiet contemplation, to listen to the murmurs of ages past. In the stillness of twilight, one could almost swear that the bridge spoke directly to the soul, a soft murmur of encouragement, of shared history, and of dreams yet to be fulfilled. In her later years, Anna Marie often recalled that first fateful evening when the whispers had stirred her heart. She realized that the bridge, with its delicate symphony of voices, was not merely a relic of a bygone era, but a timeless testament to the interconnectedness of humanity. Every whispered word, every echo was a reminder that no one truly disappears. Even as voices fade with time, they remain, woven into the delicate structure of memory and hope. Long after Anna Marie had penned her final reflections and the village had grown into a vibrant town, the bridge where whispers echoed stood as an immortal monument. Its ancient stones bore the scars of time, but also the marks of countless lives, of loves lost and found, of dreams ignited in the dim glow of remembrance. Generations continued to cross it, each journey a silent dialogue between the living and the spectral chorus of the past. On quiet nights when the world outside seemed to still and the whispers reached a gentle crescendo, visitors would pause at the center of the bridge. With eyes closed and hearts open, they would listen, finding solace in the soft murmur of voices long gone. In that fleeting communion between time and spirit, the bridge reminded every soul that every life, every memory remains eternal. Etched in the whisper of the wind, carried in the ripple of water, and sung softly by a bridge that knew the language of the heart. Thus, the legend of the Whispering Bridge endures, a living narrative of remembrance, of connection, and of the timeless power that lies in every whispered secret. Isabel Rivera, a young and ambitious art historian, was the first to notice the unsettling change. During her nightly rounds in the museum, Isabel paused before midnight reverie and felt a chill that seemed to emanate from the portrait itself. The painting, which once bore a light and nuanced quality, now had an edge that hinted at an encroaching darkness. As days passed, subtle alterations became apparent. The shadows around the subject's eyes deepened, the background swirled with an impenetrable blackness, and the overall vibrancy seemed to ebb with each sunrise. Obsessed by the mystery, Isabel began meticulous documentation. Each evening she recorded photographs, noting the incremental change with scientific precision. Yet no matter how much light she bathed the room in, the darkening persisted. The process, both slow and relentless, struck her as a silent testament to the inexorable passage of time, and perhaps something more sinister, an artistic echo of life's inevitable descent into darkness. In her quest for answers, Isabel delved into the archives of the mansion and discovered a faded ledger detailing the provenance of Midnight Reverie. The painting had been commissioned by a reclusive noble known as Lord Alistair Blackwood during the twilight of the 18th century. Rumors hinted that Blackwood was not merely a patron of the arts, but a man deeply engrossed in occult practices and the exploration of forbidden knowledge. The ledger described the painting as a mirror of the soul, capturing not only the visage of its subject, but the hidden truths of the heart. It appeared that Blackwood had believed that the canvas could serve as a kind of diary, one that recorded not the static image of the sitter, but the emotional and spiritual decay that time wrought. As Isabel pored over the records, she became increasingly convinced that the painting's mysterious darkening was no accident. It was, in fact, a deliberate act, a slow unraveling of a secret that Blackwood had tried so desperately to keep hidden. Late one stormy night, as thunder rolled in the distance and rain lashed the tall, arched windows of the mansion, Isabel received a visit from an elderly caretaker named Mr. Hargrove. With eyes clouded by memories and age, he recounted unsettling legends passed down through generations of the mansion staff. He spoke of a curse that had long surrounded the Blackwood family, a curse that claimed that any art created under its influence would eventually reveal the deep sorrow and despair of its maker. According to Mr. Hargrove, the painting was rumored to be cursed from the moment its brushstrokes had graced the canvas. The nobleman, tormented by personal loss and driven by his obsession to capture the essence of mortality, had imbued the work with a fragment of his own tortured soul. "It feeds on despair," Hargrove whispered, his voice barely audible over the tumult outside. "Every day it grows darker because it absorbs the sorrow of those who look upon it, and one day it may even cast that darkness back upon the world." Isabel's scientific mind warred with the creeping dread seeded by these tales. Could it be possible that a painting could be both a work of art and a vessel of a curse? The more she investigated, the more uneasy she became. A scholar caught between the realms of rational inquiry and the seductive allure of the supernatural. In the following weeks, a series of inexplicable events began to occur. Night after night, as Isabel studied the painting, the ambient temperature in the gallery dropped dramatically. Shadows seemed to coalesce around the portrait, moving independently of the static image it portrayed. She could swear that on certain nights the eyes of the figure in the painting appeared to follow her, glimmering with an inner light before subsiding into darkness once more. One particularly eerie evening, as a full moon bathed the museum in silvery light, Isabel stayed late to document the final changes. As she adjusted her camera's lens, the soft hum of the building gave way to a subtle whisper, a sibilant murmur that seemed to emanate directly from Midnight Reverie. The sound was indistinct, yet filled with a profound sorrow and longing, as though the spirit within the painting was calling out for recognition or release. Startled, Isabel fumbled with her equipment, and for one frozen moment, the room was plunged into a deep and foreboding silence. Haunted by the eerie occurrences, Isabel began to experience vivid dreams in which she found herself standing in a dim, labyrinthine hall lined with portraits of anguished faces. In these dreams, the subject of midnight reverie emerged repeatedly, sometimes with a pleading expression, sometimes with a resigned acceptance. Each encounter left Isabel with a lingering sense of melancholy that seeped into her waking hours. Her colleagues noticed the subtle change in her demeanor. The vibrant scholar, once full of life and ambition, now wore an expression of constant weariness, as though a piece of her spirit had been chipped away by the relentless pull of the painting's sorrow. Determined to understand the curse and its source, Isabel began to research ancient texts on art, alchemy, and the human soul. She pieced together fragments of lore that spoke of art as a living conduit, a means by which the artist's deepest emotions could be immortalized, for better or for worse. In one dusty manuscript, she read of a ritual that could supposedly seal a painting against the encroachment of despair. But the instructions were cryptic, blending symbolism with arcane references. The ritual required elements as enigmatic as the painting itself. Midnight oil blessed by a mourner's tear, a lock of hair from someone whose heart had been profoundly broken, and a chant in an ancient language long forgotten. In her desperation, Isabel began to wonder if she could be the one to break the curse that was slowly consuming her life. Isabel embarked on a journey to gather the necessary components for the ritual. Her quest took her far beyond the confines of the mansion into the depths of historical libraries, remote villages, and even cemeteries steeped in tragic lore. In a small town on the outskirts of a mist-shrouded moor, she met Amelia, a woman whose life had been indelibly marked by loss. With a voice trembling yet resolute, Amelia agreed to donate a lock of her hair, a sacrifice born of an unspoken desire to help free Isabel from the darkness. Similarly, in an ancient apothecary on a narrow cobblestone street, an elderly priest guided her to a vial of midnight oil, prepared according to rites that had been preserved through generations of secret custodians. Each piece of the puzzle came with its own price, a whispered promise, a tear, or a long-forgotten prayer that resonated with the universal language of sorrow. As Isabel collected these relics, she felt both a growing determination and a profound sadness. The more she learned, the more she realized that the curse was not just a malevolent force, but a reflection of the eternal struggle between light and dark within every heart. On the night of the new moon, a time when darkness reigned supreme, Isabel returned to the mansion. With trembling hands, she prepared the ritual in a secluded alcove within the gallery, far from prying eyes. The room was arranged with symbolic markings and relics, each carefully positioned as dictated by the ancient manuscript. The components were laid out in a precise formation around midnight reverie, whose darkening presence loomed over the ceremony. As Isabel began the incantation, reciting the chant in the archaic language of the manuscript, the atmosphere grew heavy with anticipation. The whispers from the painting intensified, reverberating against the walls like the echo of a long-forgotten lament. For a moment, time seemed to still. The eyes in the portrait flickered, and the darkness on the canvas pulsated as though it were alive, responding to her every word. At the climax of the ritual, a gust of wind burst through the room, extinguishing the candles and plunging everything into utter darkness. In that fleeting moment, Isabel felt a surge of warmth, as though a great burden had been lifted from her soul. When the light was restored, the painting remained. Yet something was different. The once impenetrable darkness that had crept over the canvas began to recede, the edges softening and revealing hints of the original colors. a beauty once concealed by sorrow. In the weeks that followed the ritual, the change in midnight reverie was palpable. The painting, though still mysterious and evocative, no longer deepened in darkness each day. Instead, it began a slow and steady process of returning to its original state, a state that was rich with subdued, yet luminous hues. The haunted eyes now carried a glimmer of hope, as if the spirit within had found a measure of redemption. Curators, visitors, and even the mansion's long-forgotten staff breathed a collective sigh of relief, sensing that the curse had at last been challenged. Yet even as the transformation took hold, Isabel knew that the journey had altered her irreparably. The painting had been both a mirror and a gateway, a reminder that beauty and despair were often inextricably intertwined. The ritual had not exorcised the dark emotions entirely, for they were a part of every human soul. Instead, it had tempered the malignant force that sought to overwhelm it. Isabel understood that the shadows remained an eternal counterpart to the light, each giving meaning to the other. As the months turned to years, midnight reverie became a focal point not only of the museum, but of the town's lore. Visitors traveled from far and wide to glimpse the transformation of the once cursed painting. Artists, writers, and philosophers debated the enigmatic interplay between darkness and light, and the story of Isabel's courageous quest became a beacon for all who had ever wrestled with despair. In quiet moments of reflection, Isabel would stand before the painting lost in thought. She recalled the nights of relentless gloom, the whispers that had almost driven her to despair, and the fraught ritual that had challenged the very essence of the supernatural. In those moments, the portrait spoke to her once more, not with a curse, but with a gentle reminder of the balance that existed in all things. The return of color to the canvas was not a denial of the darkness, but an acknowledgement of its presence and a celebration of the resilience of the human spirit. Isabel eventually penned her experiences in a detailed account that mingled personal memoir, scholarly analysis, and mystical revelation. The book, titled Brushstrokes of Midnight: The Journey from Darkness to Light, became a beloved work in both academic circles and among those intrigued by the paranormal. Its pages chronicled the haunting transformation of midnight reverie, offering insights into how art, memory, and emotion intertwine in ways that transcend the ordinary. The museum, once shrouded in mystery, became a sanctuary of contemplation. Visitors who stood before the painting often remarked on an inexplicable calm that settled over them, a silent promise that in every descent into darkness, there lay the potential for renewal. The legacy of the cursed painting thus evolved into a timeless parable that the journey through despair can, if met with courage and compassion, lead to an unexpected emergence of hope and beauty. Decades later, as the mansion's halls echoed with laughter and quiet conversations, midnight reverie hung in a place of honor. Though its history remained woven into its darkened fibers, the canvas was celebrated not as a relic of sorrow, but as a testament to the enduring power of change. In the soft glow of evening light, the painting's colors would shimmer with a subtle radiance, a living reminder that even the deepest darkness can be softened by the delicate brush of compassion and understanding. And so, the story of the painting that grew darker each day became a legend, a parable etched into the annals of art and life. It was a story about a cursed canvas and its eventual redemption, about the delicate balance of light and shadow, and most importantly, about the human heart's remarkable capacity to heal, transform, and ultimately, shine. In every corner of the mansion, and in the hearts of those who had witnessed its transformation, the tale of midnight reverie lived on. It served as an enduring symbol that beauty could emerge from despair, that the canvas of life, no matter how stained by sorrow, always held the promise of a new dawn. Grey Haven, a coastal town known for its misty mornings and salt-kissed air, bore the weight of a rich yet sorrowful history. Villagers recalled that long ago, Greyhaven had been a thriving port, a bustling center of commerce and human connection. Yet calamities, a monstrous storm, inexplicable disappearances, and whispered curses had befallen the town over the decades. In the wake of these tragedies, many souls had been left unmoored, their memories destined to fade like ripples on a stagnant pond. A legend endured among the people that a bell, forged in a time when faith and fear intertwined, was capable of reuniting the living with the souls left behind. Generations later, as the scars of old wounds smoothed over with the passage of time, some still claim to hear its distant, melancholy toll deep in the night. Evelyn Marlowe, a historian with an insatiable curiosity for lost lore, arrived in Greyhaven during the waning days of summer. Drawn by both academic intrigue and an inexplicable personal longing, she was determined to explore the town's haunted past. Her research led her to the dilapidated chapel perched on a windswept hill, the place where the legendary bell was said to reside. The chapel, swallowed by ivy and silenced by decay, seemed a repository of sorrow. As Evelyn stepped through its creaking door, the cool interior enveloped her. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light that pierced the gloom. In the far corner, concealed by broken pews, lay an iron-bound chest. Inside it, among yellowed manuscripts and relics of a bygone era, rested a small key inscribed with cryptic symbols. The inscription bore the unmistakable emblem of the chapel and hinted at the access to the bell tower, a place sealed off after the last toll was heard many decades ago. Armed with the key and a sense of trepidation, Evelyn ascended the narrow spiral staircase that led to the bell tower. Each step creaked underfoot as if protestations of warning were etched into the timbers. At the summit, a heavy oak door barred the entry to the room where the bell resided. With trembling fingers, she inserted the key into the lock. The door groaned open, and the scent of ancient incense mingled with the brine of the sea wafted in. Inside, the chamber was dominated by the bell suspended from a sturdy crossbeam. Its surface, though pitted and scarred, gleamed faintly under the moonlight, streaming through a shattered window. The silence was palpable, a quiet promise that something awaited. Evelyn's hand hovered over the cold metal, hesitant to disturb the long-held silence. Yet deep within her, a yearning to uncover lost stories urged her forward. On an impulse that felt both bold and misguided, Evelyn rang the bell. Its tone was otherworldly, a deep, sonorous sound that reverberated like the heartbeat of the earth. The chime echoed far beyond the chapel walls, seeping into the alleys of Greyhaven and stirring ancient echoes within the town. For a moment, time itself appeared to pause, as if the sound had suspended the fabric of reality. Within minutes, subtle signs of change began to manifest. In the fog that enshrouded the streets, silhouettes of figures emerged, vaguely visible and slowly growing in detail. It was as though the sound had drawn them from the margins of forgetfulness. Residents peered from shuttered windows, their expressions a blend of awe and dread. The forgotten spirits, once trapped in the haze of oblivion, were returning to the realm of the living. As the spectral figures gathered in the streets of Greyhaven, a poignant narrative unfolded. Among them were lovers torn apart by fate, brave sailors lost at sea, and even children whose laughter had once filled the town square. Their forms shimmered with ethereal light, and their eyes, filled with the weight of unspoken tales, conveyed a silent gratitude for being remembered. Evelyn watched in disbelief as the spirits converged toward the bell tower. Some wandered aimlessly, drawn by intangible memories, while others stood in solemn clusters, as if awaiting a message long overdue. An elderly man with sorrowful eyes approached her, his voice soft and resonant. "You have awakened us, child. We were left behind when the tides of time swept us away." What is it that you seek? His inquiry, gentle yet filled with a lifetime of regret, resonated deeply within her. Over the following nights, the bell's toll became a ritual, a call that allowed Evelyn to commune with these spirits. Guided by the melancholy chime, she began conversing with them, recording their tales and weaving their voices into a tapestry of memory. The spirits recounted accounts of lives that had been vibrant yet abruptly stilled. They spoke of joys, betrayals, unfulfilled dreams, and the eternal ache of loneliness. Each conversation was a lesson, a solemn reminder that every life, no matter how brief, carried weight beyond mortality. There was Marcellus, the sailor whose final voyage was shrouded in mystery. He recalled the turbulent seas, the fierce winds that had nearly torn him from his vessel, and the bittersweet realization that the ocean was both his ally and his nemesis. Then there was Lillian, a young woman whose passion for art had been eclipsed by societal constraints. Her spirit exuded a fragile beauty as she reminisced about the canvases she had painted, each stroke a burst of color in a life otherwise painted in shades of sorrow. As Evelyn's bond with the spirits deepened, she discovered that another presence lingered among them, the keeper of memories. Clad in antiquated garments and exuding a quiet authority, the keeper was tasked with preserving the essence of those who had passed. The keeper explained that the bell was no mere instrument of summoning, but a bridge between two realms. Every toll of the bell seals the pact between memory and oblivion, he intoned in a voice that resonated like a forgotten hymn. When we are remembered, we persist, and our stories become eternal. Evelyn learned that long ago the bell was constructed during a time of great upheaval, when the living and the dead were believed to share one continuous cycle. Its creation had been an act of hope, meant to honor those who might otherwise be lost to the ravages of time. The keeper shared ancient manuscripts and faded letters that chronicled the bell's legacy, revealing names, dates, and tragedies that had shaped Greyhaven over centuries. But the reunion was not without consequence. A darker force, awakened by the ringing of the bell, began to emerge. A spectral presence that defied the benevolence of memory. This entity, known only as the Forsaken, was an embodiment of forgotten pain and repressed remorse. In moments of quiet terror, Evelyn sensed its chilling presence amid the congregation of benevolent spirits. It whispered of despair and of lives that had been consumed by regret. Its influence threatened to sever the fragile balance established by the bell's resonance. Determined to protect the town and the spirits alike, Evelyn and the keeper began a quest to understand the origin of the Forsaken. They delved into ancient records and folklore, discovering that the entity was born of unacknowledged tragedies, a repository of collective sorrow that had grown in the silence between heartbeats. The solution, they surmised, lay in embracing the totality of one's history, both the light and the dark. Only by truly remembering every facet of life could the curse be lifted, transforming the Forsaken into a part of the broader narrative of healing and acceptance. In the days that followed, the town of Greyhaven transformed. Evelyn organized gatherings where the living came together to share stories of their ancestors, of both joy and pain. The bell was rung regularly, not as a summons for lost souls alone, but as a call for community, a reminder that every life mattered, every memory was significant. The rituals evolved into a celebration of continuity, a town-wide festival where music, art, and storytelling breathed new life into the past. At one such gathering, as dusk surrendered to night, the bell's sonorous toll mingled with the lilting voices of townsfolk. In that moment, the Forsaken, once a disembodied force of despair, began to dissipate, its energy absorbed into the collective healing of Greyhaven. The people learned that remembrance, when imbued with compassion, had the power to transform even the deepest wounds. Evelyn, now revered as the chronicler of Greyhaven's soul, documented the transformation in meticulous detail. Her journal overflowed with the voices of the forgotten, now reconciled with their own histories. As years passed, the bell's chime became more than a spectral summons. It evolved into a requiem for both the past and the present. Under a twilight sky, when the boundary between worlds softened, the bell tolled with unwavering rhythm. It spoke of lost loves rediscovered, of wisdom gleaned from hardship, and of an enduring connection that transcended mortal limitations. The once sorrowful echo had matured into a lullaby that cradled the town in gentle reassurances, inviting all to partake in the eternal cycle of remembrance and renewal. During one particularly luminous night, the keeper and Evelyn met once more in the bell tower. They shared a quiet moment of reflection. The keeper confided, "Every time the bell rings, it is a reminder that to be forgotten is to cease existing. Your courage has rekindled a flame of remembrance that even the darkest sorrow cannot extinguish." Evelyn, gazing into the endless night, realized that her journey was far from over. She had not only bridged the gap between life and death, but had also bound the community together in the luminous tapestry of shared history. Long after Evelyn's time, the legend of the bell that summons forgotten spirits persisted in Greyhaven. The chapel's ruins became a hallowed site where generations gathered to honor their shared past. New stories were woven into the fabric of the town, a continuing narrative of both celebration and mourning. The bell, ever vigilant, remained a silent sentinel over the threshold of memory, its chime a perpetual call to honor those who had once lived and to welcome the lessons of every soul. In the hushed moments of dawn, when the first rays of sunlight crest the misty streets, the bell would toll softly, a gentle reminder that every memory is sacred. And in that reverberating tone lay the promise that the forgotten would never truly fade. For as long as someone remembered them, their spirit would linger in the endless echo of time. Thus the tale of the bell endures, a sprawling epic of memory, loss, and renewal. Its story is not merely one of spectral apparitions, but a chronicle of life itself, where every forgotten spirit finds solace in the warmth of remembrance, and every chime offers a bridge between the ephemeral and the eternal. In a time long before modern maps and measured journeys, the people of old spoke in hushed voices of a gate that appeared when the darkness of uncertainty settled over one's heart. Travelers recounted eerie encounters in remote hamlets where lost souls, whether physically adrift in unfamiliar lands or spiritually burdened by grief and regret, claimed to have stumbled upon a wondrous, ivy-clad archway. It was said that this gate did not swing open for the proud or the steadfast, but only for those whose hearts had been broken, whose steps had faltered, and whose eyes searched for solace in the twilight. The gate, adorned with intricate carvings of intertwining vines and ancient symbols, was rumored to be a creation of forgotten deities, a threshold forged in the liminal space between night and dawn. Legends foretold that if one stood before it at the moment when hope and hopelessness mingled, the gate would slowly part, revealing a path that led to an unknown destiny. Some believed that those who crossed its threshold would find redemption, while others claimed that the gate led only to deeper mysteries and challenges that must be overcome before the soul could be truly whole. In a bygone era, when the earth was young and magic flowed as freely as the rivers, the land was ruled by benevolent gods who watched over humankind. One such deity, known only as Laranthos, the guardian of wandering souls, was said to have taken pity on those who had lost their way. Laranthos, with a compassion as boundless as the sky, crafted a magnificent gate from stardust and ancient oak. This gate was imbued with the power to reveal one's true path, but only to those who had suffered loss and experienced the sting of despair. Its purpose was clear: to guide the lost back to the light, even if the journey required facing the darkest corners of one's own heart. As centuries passed and the old gods faded into legend, the gate endured, its magic hidden beneath layers of time and memory. Many forgot the divine origin of the gateway, but its silent vigil continued on a forgotten hillside, nestled within a glen where wildflowers grew amidst crumbling stone. Here, the gate waited patiently for the souls who had strayed too far from the beaten path. The ancient texts of that era spoke of a peculiar mark, a faint, luminescent sigil that would appear upon the skin of a soul in turmoil. It was said that only those who bore this mark, whether as a blessing or a burden, could see the hidden glen and the gate that awaited. The mark was not permanent, it often faded with time, yet its presence was a harbinger of a destiny not yet fulfilled. Thus the gate was destined to open only for those truly lost, as if the cosmos itself recognized the need for guidance and second chances. In a modest village on the outskirts of a vast ancient forest, a young man named Callum lived a quiet life shadowed by a deep, unspoken sorrow. Callum had once been full of dreams and ambition, but a series of tragic events, a love lost, a family broken, and opportunities squandered, had left him feeling unmoored and alone. The once hopeful fire in his heart had dwindled to a faint, uncertain glow. Haunted by the memories of what once was, Callum spent his days wandering the village and the surrounding countryside, seeking something he could not name. In his solitude, he began to notice strange occurrences, brief flashes of light in the corner of his eye, the gentle warmth of a phantom hand on his shoulder, and, most intriguingly, a delicate sigil that sometimes appeared upon his wrist, a mark he had never seen before. These signs whispered to him of a destiny greater than his current despair and urged him to leave the familiar behind in search of a new beginning. One cold, misty evening, as the fading light of dusk bled into the gathering night, Callum made a fateful decision. Unable to bear the weight of his own loss any longer, he gathered a small pack with a few treasured belongings, a worn journal, a faded photograph of happier times, and a locket containing the last memento of his beloved. With a heavy heart but a spark of resolve, he set out beyond the boundaries of his village, drawn by an inexplicable pull toward the unknown. As he ventured into the dense forest and over craggy hills, the signs grew clearer. The faint, luminescent mark upon his skin pulsed with each step, and in his dreams he began to see glimpses of a grand, ivy-draped gate standing alone in a clearing under the twilight sky. The visions were as beautiful as they were haunting, a promise of guidance for those who had lost their way. Callum's path was fraught with both physical and emotional challenges. The forest was a labyrinth of twisting trails, where shadows played tricks on the eyes, and ancient trees seemed to whisper secrets in a language long forgotten. Along the way, he encountered others who, like him, were lost, some wandering aimlessly, others burdened by their own regrets. Yet despite the hardships, each encounter became a lesson in resilience and compassion. There was Era, an elderly herbalist whose once vibrant eyes had dimmed with sorrow, and Joran, a stoic warrior haunted by the ghosts of battles past. Each shared their stories of loss and the quiet hope that somewhere beyond the horizon, a new dawn awaited. Their voices intertwined with the rustle of leaves and the murmuring wind, echoing the ancient promise that even the most shattered soul could find its way back to light. As days turned into nights and nights into days, the forest itself seemed to conspire in Callum's favor. Unusual phenomena, glowing fireflies that danced in intricate patterns, paths lit by bioluminescent moss, and the haunting sound of a distant melodic chime, guided him deeper into the wilderness. With each step, the mysterious mark on his wrist grew brighter, and the dreams of a grand gate became more persistent. One twilight, as the sky was streaked with shades of purple and orange, Callum reached a clearing bathed in soft, ethereal light. In the center of the clearing, framed by ancient stone and wild roses, stood a majestic gate. Its wrought iron design was delicate yet imposing, adorned with symbols that glimmered in the fading light. The sight struck him with overwhelming emotion, a mixture of fear, wonder, and a deep, aching hope. Callum approached the gate with hesitant steps, his heart pounding like a drum in the stillness of the twilight. The air around him was charged with an energy both exhilarating and unnerving. As he drew near, the gate's intricate carvings seemed to come alive, shifting and dancing in the soft glow of the setting sun. The very ground beneath his feet hummed with ancient power, and for a moment, time itself appeared to stand still. Standing before the gate, Callum raised his hand and brushed his fingers against the cool metal. In that instant, a gentle warmth spread through his body, and the mark on his wrist flared with radiant light. Slowly, the heavy doors of the gate began to creak open, as if acknowledging his presence and his pain. The sight was breathtaking, a threshold between the world he knew and a realm that promised healing, redemption, and perhaps even rebirth. Without fully understanding the gravity of the moment, Callum stepped through the open gate. Beyond it lay a path that wound through a lush, otherworldly landscape, a place where the colors were more vibrant. The air was laced with the scent of blooming jasmine and rain-washed earth, and a serene melody echoed in the distance. It was as if he had entered a sanctuary created by the lost, a haven where every soul burdened by sorrow could begin anew. With each step along the path, the weight of his past began to ease. Memories of regret and grief, once so oppressive, seemed to dissolve like mist in the morning sun. In their place emerged a quiet understanding, a realization that his journey, with all its pain and setbacks, had led him to this moment of profound possibility. The realm beyond the gate, which the ancient texts had hinted at but few had ever seen, was a place of gentle miracles. Rolling meadows of luminescent flowers stretched as far as the eye could see, and crystalline streams sang soft lullabies as they meandered through emerald forests. Here the skies shifted through hues of twilight, even at midday, a reminder that time in this realm was fluid, unbound by the rigid constraints of the world Callum once knew. In this new land, the lost gathered, wandering souls, each bearing scars of their past, found solace among one another. They built small, harmonious communities where each person's story was honored, and every tear was transformed into a seed of wisdom. The land itself seemed to nurture them, its magic gently healing old wounds and fostering growth in the hearts of those who dared to dream again. In a serene grove at the heart of this realm, a council was held by those who had come to understand that being lost was not a curse, but a state of transition. Elders with eyes that had seen both sorrow and joy shared their insights, while artists and poets wove stories of redemption through song and verse. Callum, humbled by the journey and the transformations he witnessed, was welcomed into the fold as one of the newly found. Under the gentle guidance of the council, Callum learned that the gate was not merely a physical passage, but a spiritual crucible, a test of one's willingness to confront the truths buried within and emerge stronger for it. He began to share his own story, his voice resonating with the quiet power of someone who had known despair but now embraced hope. His journey, once marked by uncertainty and loss, had become a beacon for others still wandering in darkness. Years passed, and the legend of the gate that opens only for the lost became a cherished parable among those who lived in the realm beyond. The gate remained at the boundary, a silent sentinel that occasionally reappeared to guide a new generation of seekers. Travelers from the old world, burdened by their own sorrows, would sometimes catch a glimpse of the glowing mark on their skin and feel the irresistible pull toward the mysterious hillside where the gate awaited. Callum, now a respected storyteller and guardian of the realm's ancient wisdom, would often sit by the edge of a tranquil lake and recount his journey to anyone who cared to listen. He taught that being lost was a vital part of the human experience, a necessary passage through which the soul learns, heals, and ultimately finds its way home. The gate, with its ornate carvings and timeless magic, remained a symbol of hope and renewal. It reminded all who encountered it that even in the depths of despair, there is the possibility of transformation. The realm beyond was not a destination, but a journey, a continuum where every lost soul could rediscover its purpose and contribute to the tapestry of shared memory and collective healing. As twilight fell each day in the enchanted land, the hues of dusk whispered promises of new beginnings. In every shadow, in every flicker of the luminescent flora, there was a gentle reminder that sometimes being lost is the very first step toward being found. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the world still held its breath and dreams lingered on the edge of waking, those who had crossed the gate would pause to reflect on the journey that brought them there. Their hearts, once heavy with regret, now beat with the steady rhythm of hope and resilience. They knew that the gate would always open for the lost, each time offering a chance to shed the weight of yesterday and step boldly into the promise of a new day. Thus, the story of the gate that opens only for the lost endures, a timeless saga of despair and redemption, of journeys into darkness and the radiant dawn that follows. It is a tale written in the language of the soul, a reminder that no matter how far one may wander, there is always a way back, a portal of understanding that awaits those brave enough to seek it. Long ago, before the rise of modern conveniences, there was a grand estate known as Blackwood Manor. Built by a prosperous family whose legacy stretched back through generations, the manor was a symbol of opulence and tradition. Its stone walls, meticulously carved with symbols of fortune and protection, witnessed countless celebrations, whispered conspiracies, and tragic farewells. Over time, as the descendants of Blackwood faded from memory and the estate passed through the hands of unknown heirs, the house fell into a state of melancholic abandonment. It was during these dark, forgotten years that the true nature of the manor began to reveal itself. Locals spoke in hushed tones of eerie sounds drifting from the crumbling corridors and of voices that seemed to answer questions long after they were asked. They believed that Blackwood Manor was more than a structure of stone and wood. It was a living repository of all that had transpired within its walls. Some say that the echoes began when the last heir, a forlorn poet named Edwin Blackwood, was consumed by despair after a personal tragedy. In his final days, he wandered the halls, reciting verses of loss and longing. Legend has it that his anguished words, filled with love and sorrow, resonated so deeply within the ancient stones that they awakened a mysterious force. From that moment on, every whispered conversation, every burst of laughter, every tear shed and secret spoken was captured by the manor and set free as echoes, phantom voices that would forever linger in the empty rooms. The house became a silent chronicler of its own past, preserving the joys and heartbreaks of all who had lived there. And as the years passed, its reputation grew, drawing the curious and the brave from distant lands, all eager to uncover the secret of the echoes that never faded. In a small village bordering the estate, a young woman named Clara Monroe led a life marked by a quiet yearning for meaning. Clara, a sensitive soul with a talent for painting and a heart attuned to the subtlest emotions, had always felt drawn to the mysteries of the past. When word reached her of a house where echoes lived, a place where the voices of lost souls seemed to speak to those who were willing to listen, she felt an inexplicable pull toward Blackwood Manor. Despite warnings from superstitious neighbors and the fearful glances of villagers, Clara decided to seek out the manor. She envisioned it as a sanctuary where she could find inspiration for her art, a place where the layers of forgotten history might reveal new truths about love, loss, and the passage of time. One chilly autumn evening, with the sky a tapestry of deep blues and fading golds, Clara arrived at the overgrown iron gate of Blackwood Manor. The gate creaked open with a sound that seemed to echo into eternity, welcoming her into a world suspended between past and present. As she stepped onto the property, a shiver ran down her spine. Not of fear, but of anticipation. The air was heavy with the scent of old wood and rain-damp earth, and somewhere in the distance, she thought she heard the faint sound of a melancholic melody. Inside the grand foyer, though cloaked in dust and cobwebs, retained an air of faded splendor. Ornate chandeliers hung from the ceiling, their crystals dull and silent. Each step Clara took echoed softly in the vast, empty space, a constant reminder that the house itself was listening, remembering. As night fell and the manor was draped in a deep, velvety darkness, Clara began to experience the house's true nature. In the silence, she started to notice faint murmurs, soft echoes of voices that seemed to drift from the walls. At first, she dismissed them as tricks of the wind or the creaking of old wood. But as the hours passed, the sounds grew clearer. Snippets of conversation, laughter, and even tears, as if the house were reenacting scenes from a forgotten play. Clara ventured into the corridors, guided by a compulsion she could not explain. In a long hallway, lined with faded portraits, she heard the faint recitation of a poem, a voice so tender and sorrowful that it made her heart ache. She followed the sound to a small sitting room, where the echo of a woman's laughter mingled with the rustle of invisible skirts. It was as if the room itself were a canvas, painted with the vibrant emotions of those who had once lived there. One evening, while exploring a forgotten library filled with ancient tomes and brittle manuscripts, Clara encountered something extraordinary. In a secluded alcove, bathed in the soft glow of moonlight seeping through a fractured window, she discovered a large mirror. Unlike ordinary mirrors, this one did not simply reflect her image. It seemed to show her visions of the past. As she gazed into its depths, she saw fleeting images. A family gathered for a joyful celebration, a sorrowful farewell at a departure, and even a lone figure wandering the halls, his eyes heavy with regret. The mirror's surface shimmered, and for a moment, Clara felt as though she were peering into the very soul of the house. The echoes, she realized, were not random. They were the living memories of every moment that had ever occurred within these walls. The mirror, like the house itself, was a silent keeper of history, holding the voices of the past in eternal suspension. Driven by a burning curiosity, Clara began to delve into the manor's hidden history. She spent days poring over the diaries and letters left behind by the Blackwood family, slowly piecing together a tapestry of joy, sorrow, and inevitable tragedy. In the yellowed pages of an old journal, she discovered the story of Edwin Blackwood, the poet whose lament had awakened the echoes. His words spoke of love lost and the eternal yearning for connection, resonating with a beauty that was both haunting and sublime. Clara learned that the house had been a center of creativity and passion, a place where art and life were intertwined in a delicate dance. But as time passed and the family's fortunes waned, the echoes of their former glory turned to murmurs of regret and despair. Each echo, each whispered memory, was a fragment of a life lived fully and then faded into obscurity. In her search, Clara discovered a hidden door behind a tattered tapestry in the grand hall. The door, carved with intricate symbols and barely visible in the dim light, led to a secret chamber, a sanctuary that had once been used by the Blackwoods for private gatherings and the preservation of family heirlooms. Inside, she found relics of the past, a music box that played a long-forgotten lullaby, portraits of ancestors whose eyes seemed to follow her, and a collection of letters addressed to no one in particular. In the center of the chamber, on a pedestal of carved oak, lay a small leather-bound book. Its pages were filled with the recorded echoes of the house, the voices of those who had once lived there, captured in elegant script. The book detailed moments of joy and sorrow, of love and loss, and revealed that the house itself was a repository for every emotion that had ever been felt within its walls. Clara realized that the echoes were not simply remnants of the past. They were the very essence of life, preserved in time. As the days turned into weeks, Clara found that the echoes began to weave themselves into the fabric of her own life. The voices of the past became a gentle guide, offering her insights into her own heart. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the world was still and the house hummed with ancient memories, Clara would sit by the mirror and converse with the echoes, asking questions about love, loss, and the nature of existence. Through these silent dialogues, she discovered parts of herself that she had long buried. The dreams of her youth, the sorrows that had shaped her, and the unspoken hopes that lay dormant. The house, with its living echoes, became both a teacher and a friend, revealing that every whispered secret of the past was a mirror reflecting her own soul. Slowly, Clara began to use her newfound understanding to heal the wounds of her own past. She started to record her conversations with the echoes in her own journal, blending her experiences with those of the long-gone Blackwoods. In doing so, she created a living tapestry of memory that honored both the beauty and the pain of life. The echoes, once voices of despair, transformed into a symphony of shared human experience, a chorus that celebrated the resilience of the heart in the face of time's inexorable march. Her art blossomed as well. Inspired by the vibrant history of Blackwood Manor, Clara painted canvases that captured the ephemeral beauty of a moment, the interplay of light and shadow, and the quiet strength found in memory. Her works, rich with the hues of nostalgia and hope, began to draw attention from beyond the village, and soon her name became synonymous with the magic of the echoes. Over time, the people of the nearby village began to notice subtle changes in Blackwood Manor. The once forlorn estate, known for its melancholy silence, began to hum with a gentle vitality. Neighbors reported hearing soft, harmonious voices drifting on the wind, echoes of laughter, of stories shared on warm summer evenings, of hearts unburdened by regret. The house, it seemed, had learned to let go of the pain of the past, embracing instead the full spectrum of human emotion. Clara, now regarded as the caretaker of the echoes, opened the manor's long-forgotten doors to visitors seeking solace and inspiration. She hosted gatherings where people from far and wide would come to listen to the whispers of the past, to share their own stories, and to learn that the echoes of memory could be both a reminder of loss and a beacon of hope. In the twilight of each day, as the setting sun cast long, ethereal shadows across the estate, the house seemed to come alive with a gentle promise. The echoes, once mournful and forlorn, now danced on the walls like delicate ribbons of light. They spoke not of what had been lost, but of what could be found in the embrace of remembrance, a future built on the foundation of shared history, compassion, and the unyielding human spirit. Clara often stood on the manor's balcony, gazing out over the rolling hills and the quiet village below. In those moments, she understood that the true magic of the house was not in its ghostly whispers, but in its ability to transform the past into a living, breathing testament to hope. The house where echoes live had become a sanctuary for all who believed that memories, however bittersweet, were the threads that connected the heart to the eternal. Years passed, and the legend of Blackwood Manor grew into a cherished tale told around campfires and in quiet, contemplative gatherings. Travelers, artists, and seekers of truth would come to the estate to hear the echoes and to experience the gentle, transformative magic that filled its halls. The house, with its walls steeped in centuries of stories, stood as a testament to the enduring power of memory, a reminder that every whisper of the past holds the potential to heal, inspire, and guide us toward a brighter tomorrow. Clara Monroe's legacy woven into the tapestry of the manor's history, continued to inspire future generations. She became a mentor to those who struggled with the weight of forgotten sorrows, teaching them that the echoes of the past were not chains to bind them, but gentle guides to help them rediscover the beauty of life. Her journals, paintings, and writings were preserved in a small museum within the manor, a sanctuary of reflection and hope. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the world was still and the echoes whispered softly through the corridors, visitors would pause and listen. They learned that in every echo there lay a story, and in every story, a lesson, a promise that even as time passes, the essence of who we are endures, immortalized in the soft, ceaseless murmur of memory. On clear, starlit nights when the world seemed to hold its breath between dusk and dawn, one could see a lone figure wandering the halls of Blackwood Manor. It was said that this figure was the spirit of the house itself, a guardian of memories, ever watchful, ever gentle, inviting all who entered to embrace the echoes of their past and step boldly into the promise of the future. For in the house where echoes live, every sound, every sigh, every whispered word was a testament to the beauty and fragility of life. It was a place where time was not measured by the ticking of a clock, but by the cadence of a heart that remembered, and the soft murmur of voices that lived on, an eternal symphony of hope, sorrow, and the undying light of memory.